Recently, I've noticed there's a bunch of people who say you should reject modern art. Most of this comes from some sort of understanding of modern art as being all about narcissism and the self and meaning coming from the self. I don't want to get into all of that yet, but whenever I think of embracing things, I think of this painting by Rembrandt. This is the painting of the prodigal son. I think when it comes to a lesson in what you should and shouldn't embrace, it seems that we should be pretty liberal in our understanding of what and whom we should embrace. And this painting often reminds me of that. Some of the frustrations with modern art is how inhuman it is. Whether it's abstraction that strips the image of all recognizable forms, sometimes it seems like a stupid joke, whether that's a pipe that is not a pipe, or a banana, or a snow shovel. Sometimes it's downright ugly, seems repulsive at its core. I like to take a broad view. So when I think about these ideas of modern art, the first thing I wonder is that all there is to it? But on top of that, I wonder, is modern art any different than the rest of modernity? After all, it was a time period that followed a certain philosophical framework, which led to all kinds of different things. So what was happening to science during this time? Right before modernity in the industrial era, the sciences and engineering geniuses and marvels of the world were building things like the White City for the Chicago World Fair. They were so confident in their abilities that they even did something as astounding as reversing the flow of the Chicago River. There was an understanding that humans had developed technology to a point they could overcome nature, and there was a hope on the horizon. They made the bright white city. They did reverse the flow of that river. They had considerable power, and they kept on drawing closer to material because occasionally something would fail. They didn't quite fully understand the physics of Newton, and so physics became theoretical. You can see this through Einstein and all of his different theories, especially the theory of relativity. Modern science dove deep and kept on looking closer at the universe, trying to understand the nature of the universe. And in this, it becomes inhuman, abstract, sometimes a strange joke, but it leads to useful things. Things that we barely understand, but we can still use. Think about your smartphone. Do you really understand how it works? It can tell you at any moment where you are on this planet as long as it has a signal. Somehow, using satellites, it's able to figure out exactly where you are. Can you understand how? Do you know how it does that? Do you understand how Einstein's theory of relativity helps it achieve this? Because time for your phone passes differently than for the satellite. You see, our technology, even though it's still useful, doesn't make any sense to us. It's effectively magic, even though we trust that the scientists and programmers behind all of it assure us it's not actual magic. I think that in the same manner that theoretical physics is out of touch with the everyday audience, can help us understand why modern art is so weird. See, modern art went into the academy and started asking questions, again, because of technology. Because of what the camera did, it made artists realize that they couldn't rely upon their skill to enchant people for very much longer. Similar to what algorithmic image generators might do to us today. The camera can represent reality way better than any painter and way faster. And so the painters took up their brushes and wondered, what is a painting? Just like the scientists wondered, what is an atom? The painters drew closer to paint, trying to understand what it is. What is it that makes it special? What is it that makes it an artwork? Does it matter if you paint a king or an emperor like Napoleon? What happens if you paint a stonebreaker? What happens if all there is paint? What happens if you get rid of the brush touching the canvas? Can it still mean something? Can it mean anything at all, or is it just paint? They were doing the same enterprise as the scientists, drawing closer to the material at hand and finding that there was a significant amount of depth the deeper you went. Modern science realized that even the smallest thing, the atom, was useful. Modern art realized that even just paint can be meaningful. So should you embrace modern science? I think so. I don't know if you should embrace all of it. After all, it brought the atom bomb, but it also brings penicillin. Should you embrace modern art? Perhaps not all of it, but probably at least some of it. I want to make a series of essays that go into the details of different modern artists, all the way through postmodern artists and up now to the contemporary artists. I want to demonstrate my main point. I think you should embrace modern art by and large. I think there's much to be gleaned from modern art. Obviously, not all of it is good, just like not all of Renaissance art was good. But in fact, If you embrace art, I think you'll find some pearls out in those fields. And also, I think you'll find that you can understand the world today, because the world today has largely incorporated ideas and warnings of modernists and modern artists. For some time now, people have been under the notion that our culture is Christian, or a liberal democracy, or our economic system is purely about capital and capitalists. This is only partially true. We live in a strange, mixed world where different visions and philosophical frameworks overlap. And you can see this and how it has developed if you look at art history, at least since 1900. In this series of videos, I'll take on specific artists, try to give a good overview as to what they're generally accomplishing through their artwork, and show you how that connects to things that are happening today. And I think you'll find that all of these folks crying out that we should reject modern art have a simplistic understanding of what modern art even is. In fact, they frequently use the term wrong. Usually what they're talking about is actually contemporary art. But regardless, there's a lot to be gleaned from modern art. Some modern art is, I think, as inhuman as the atom bomb. Take Ad Reinhardt, for example. In 1961, he wrote this statement about this painting, which perhaps, if you agree that modern art is about seeking the pure aesthetic object that is flat and inhuman, then I suppose this is the last painting you can paint. He says, "A square, neutral, shapeless, canvas, 5 feet wide, 5 feet high as a man, as wide as a man's outstretched arms, not large, not small, sizeless, trisected, no composition, one horizontal form negating one vertical form, formless, no top, no bottom, directionless, 3, more or less, dark, lightless, no contrasting, colorless, colors, brushwork brushed out to remove brushwork, a matte, flat, freehand, painted surface, glossless, textureless, non-linear, no hard edge, no soft edge, which does not reflect its surroundings, a pure, abstract, non-objective, timeless, spaceless, changeless, relationless, disinterested painting, an object that is self-conscious, no consciousness, ideal, transcendent, aware of no thing but art, absolutely no anti-art." And that feels to me as inhuman as it gets, and I don't personally want to embrace this artwork as if it were my son. I don't reject it as not being art. It certainly is art. It certainly is meaningful. Even all those words and those simple forms, it definitely means something. To me, not very much. But since I embrace this, I can move into an artist today that I think most of those folks who say something like embrace the Renaissance, because the Renaissance is about realness. It's connected to the Madonna and Child and holiness. It tells stories that we can relate to. That's certainly true. I think you should embrace the Renaissance as well, despite the fact that there's some weird stuff in there, especially if you start looking at Da Vinci and the Shroud of Turin. Not all of it is real, and some of it is an illusion, and you can kind of understand how we got to modernism if you really study Renaissance art. But if you embrace modern art, then I think you can enjoy this image here from David Wallace Haskins. This is his piece, Image Continuous. It's a mirrored cube with a circular hole. Inside, another mirror is angled to show the sky. You see, humans are built for standing upright and looking straight ahead. Our eyes are next to each other instead of on top of each other, so that we can look across the horizontal plane that we stand on, which means you have to look up to see the sky. The sky is above you at all times. We call these the vaults of heaven, but here, in a cube of continuous reflection that reflects all of the natural order at eye height, are the vaults of the sky of the changing clouds in the solid square of the created world. The material love the modern artists had led Haskins to embrace the minimal forms and manufactured materials. Haskin uses the simple aesthetics of modernity to reframe rather than represent. Taking a cue from Reinhardt's statement, you could say, this is neither abstraction or representation. It is material reality. And the truth is that you're walking in the sky. You don't need to be told this when you look at his work. You feel it. You experience it. The simple use of the mirror is enchanting. It is powerful. The clouds are both otherworldly or heavenly, and here, on the ground, in an 8 by 8 by 8 foot square. Not that big, definitely not small. Not representation, presentation. No texture in the glass and mirror, yet showing the texture of creation, both in the sky and in the trees. Not abstract, and yet abstract. The forest and sky are both natural, and yet they contrast. The sky surrounds the earth, and yet here the earth surrounds the sky. The earth is in the sky, and apparently the sky is in the earth. It is timeless and solid, while only revealing the passing of time. It floats as though spaceless while being grounded. It feels almost alien, and yet all it shows is nature around it. I think the likes of Andrew Clavin could appreciate this artwork, but you first have to embrace that pig slop covered modern artist to do so. The artists got down in the muck in the 20th century in order to understand what was from above. I think like Dostoevsky did. Many of them were not doing what Reinhardt was doing. They weren't seeking something inhuman, but rather they were realizing that as you drew closer to the material, it didn't matter what the painting represented, but rather that almost anything can be meaningful. The question is, how deeply meaningful can it be?